Great to meet all of you folks. My name is Manani Sharma, and I'm a senior product manager on the ADEM team. And today I'm going to walk you through all of the several updates that we have on ADEM and show you in real time the look and feel of the product and what that looks like. So let me start sharing my screen and we can get started. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Perfect. All right. So right before we dive into the solution, I do want to highlight the critical problem areas and the pain points that we see in the industry today. So when we work with several customers, one of the key things that typically comes up is when you talk about hybrid work, and now you see the stats that 77% of employees still choose hybrid work. What we do see is that if a user is in office or remote, their issues can vary drastically, and the control that the IT team has on those issues can also vary. For example, if I'm at home right now and I have issues on this Zoom call, I'm going to call Palo Alto IT team, right? And then they're going to have to jump on call with me, see what's happening on my side of the network, and then diagnose and troubleshoot from there. So one of the key blind spots we see today is really with hybrid users, because the users are everywhere, their network constantly changes, which is why we see that now IT teams have that blind spot of really where are you and what's happening on your side of the network. The second thing we see is the reliance on SaaS applications. So now you see organizations are heavily reliant on SaaS applications for business critical needs, right? So you see here that organizations maintain an average of over 110 SaaS apps. That's a huge number. And typically, what happens with IT teams is that if you need to monitor these 110 SaaS applications, it can be incredibly challenging, right? If you're looking at each of their dashboards to rely on the SLAs and the performance, right? It's almost nearly impossible. So that's the second blind spot that I'm going to talk about how we solve for these today. And then the third aspect here that I want to cover is the application interdependencies. So what we see here is that you see with the new microservice architecture in the way applications are now stored, there could be that there are issues with a particular subdomain or specific service within an application and not the entire application in itself. So now you see that 56% of IT managers don't actually have a complete view of the dependencies of these applications. How do you know that there is a particular service within an application that is yielding a degraded performance to users and not the whole application in itself? Now, moving to these blind spots, if you look at it, this can actually cause a huge time. It can really increase the mean time to detection. It can shoot up, right, to from 4 to 5 hours to 10 to 15 days as a whole. And you see that the playbooks that need to happen for you to actually identify that this issue was on a particular service is also very high in number. So this is what this is telling you, that within ServiceNow, you could have a good experience on ServiceNow login and domains. But when you go specifically to the ServiceNow dashboard page, because it has more dynamic content on the page, you could have a degradation on a specific service or a specific page as well. Now, I also want to highlight the other visibility challenges, right? So I spoke about it when I spoke about the hybrid workforce. And if you look at the entire service delivery chain, when you look at the hybrid workforce, when you look at the applications and the interdependencies, this slide is covering the entire service delivery chain to tell you that no matter where the user is, you see that there are current blind spots to understand what is really happening on the user's device, Wi-Fi, their router, the service provider that they're using for the internet, as well as the applications that they're going to. And behind those application servers, really the interdependencies of those specific services within a particular application. Those are the blind spots that we're looking at. Additionally, for branch users, what's the health and performance of the WAN? on the branch, the router, your auth and DNS service, right? So all of these, if you look at it, are the visibility challenges that IT teams face today. Now, I want to introduce to you autonomous digital experience management. As part of this, what I'm going to cover in today's presentation and demo is I'm going to walk you through some of our core features that provide us smart discovery and insights into quickly understanding what user is having a specific issue and due to what root cause. Additionally, I'll also show you the aspect of AI-driven remediation, where based on the type of root cause that the user is suffering from or a set of users are suffering from, the remediation would change, right? And finally, I do want to hone into the fact that ADEM is a natively integrated solution with network security, right? So we are a natively integrated solution with our SASE service for mobile users as well as users in the branch offices, right? And we are also now natively integrated with our firewalls. So for mobile users who are connecting to a Prisma Access gateway or an NGFW gateway or a firewall, right? We're able to provide detailed visibility into the service delivery chain in that aspect, as well as when users are in the branch side, if they're using an ION, a Prisma SD-WAN ION, or if they're using an NGFW SD-WAN branch office box, that's also when we are able to provide end-to-end visibility into the entire service delivery chain. Now, a couple of things I do want to call out here is that today ADEM is available through Strata Cloud Manager. So Strata Cloud Manager is our cloud hosted platform where we are able to provide the smart discovery and insights. So what you're seeing on the screen today, and I'll also show you on the demo, is a geographic view of where your users are located. So you can quickly pinpoint if users are having a degradation with the colorization of these users on the map. And I'll show you that as well. Then there's AI-driven remediation, which reduces the MTTR by 77% because it's now generated based on each issue. So first off, you don't need to really go through several steps to understand the root cause. The root cause is provided to you with the remediation steps so that the IT help desk, even instead of going through their regular playbook, which they typically do as a day-to-day job, they can look at the dashboard, look at the root cause, and then the specific remediation to solve for that problem. And then, of course, you will see how the solution comes together with Palo Alto's network security, since it is natively integrated to provide synthetic capabilities as well as real user browser traffic insights. And you'll also see that because ADEM agent is also natively integrated with Global Protect, there's no new hardware or software installations needed, right, for mobile users. And for IONs and branch side scenarios, we do have the ADEM agent that can be deployed onto the ION devices or the NGFWs as well. Additionally, one point I do want to call out is ADEM is also available for Prisma Access browser users, which does provide you detailed insights into real user browser traffic, which I'm going to cover today as well. Now, talking about the smart discovery and insights, I will walk you through generally the comprehensive observability that we see today, which is across these different planes, that is where your users are located, what's the network performance on their end, the performance on the branch sites of the WAN device, the internet, then infrastructure monitoring, which is auth and DNS service, as well as understanding performance of SaaS or private apps, right? So this could be if you want to monitor app SLAs, if you're trying to get the L7 metrics and really understand what's the latency, if you're trying to understand the page load time to really see how is this page loading onto the browser, right? These are all things I'm going to cover today, from endpoint health to network health, then going on to our entire synthetic tests and real user monitoring. Now, with the AI-driven remediation, right, we have this workflow that we look at the entire service delivery chain to see what might be going wrong within that service delivery chain. And we do this through our synthetic tests that we do from the device to the LAN to internet to the overlay tunnels and to the end applications to really understand what is the health and performance of each of these segments for a user. And then based on the synthetic test, as well as what the browser gives us from the real user monitoring, which we actually get page load time, right? And other key metrics as well. And thirdly, we also have native cloud to cloud integrations with UCaaS applications such as MS Teams and Zoom, which I will cover today as well. And those also feed into how we provide root causing. So we look at these several different signals to tell us what is the root cause of this issue that the user is facing. So in the case of UCaaS applications, we have call quality statistics that we look at. In the case of other web hosted applications, we can continue to look at synthetics and real user monitoring to provide these insights. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is with this automated correlation, when you look at the entire service delivery chain and when you are able to correlate different parts of the network to quickly pinpoint the actual root cause, what it does for IT teams is reducing the noise. So that is what we have been working on, is to actually look at your entire network and infrastructure and correlate the different signals and segments to really indicate and pinpoint on the specific root cause so that you don't have to waste time looking at the different parts of the network and figuring out why an alert was raised on one side and the other side and the third side, right? We correlate it and we show you what is the root cause that you have to fix, and we can give you the symptoms of that as well. And finally, we have our streamlined remediation with self-service for employees and AI assistant for admins, right? So what that means is, let's say there is an application issue or there is an internet issue, right? So we notify admins of application outages. We also notify admins of any infrastructure issues, but there are certain issues that you directly want to tell the end user, right? If they themselves are facing some issues due to their Wi-Fi signal, maybe they are now connected to a different Wi-Fi network, and the previous Wi-Fi network that they were connected to, maybe at home, was working better. Maybe now they've opened up the hotspot, which has a poorer performance. So these are all scenarios where you want to directly notify the end user instead of just going through the IT, right? Of course, IT can have additional controls on it, but essentially what you want to do is directly empower the end user and tell them that I see now you are connected to your hotspot. Previously, you were connected to home Wi-Fi, and that was giving you a better performance, right? So this actually reduces again a lot of steps for the IT team themselves, right? So we do have our self-service, which is again sending notifications directly to the employees. And then, of course, notifications as well as the visualization on the dashboards for the admins to consume so that they can understand that for whichever business critical app you want to monitor, you're able to see easily what is the root cause of the issue if a user complains. And this could be pertaining to single user issues such as I'm a user and I had issues accessing Salesforce, maybe the dashboards page, right? And I'm calling in to my IT and saying, I have issues accessing Salesforce. In which case, you can go to the user specific workflows. Whereas if there are broader issues, or larger widespread issues, that we can surface it on the org wide view. So you can understand on a global level based on your deployment what really is the issue and how many users are impacted or what is the blast radius of that issue. Now, I did slightly talk about this in a previous slide, but I will again talk about how ADEM is actually natively integrated with SASE and NGFW for effortless management, right? So this means if we are natively integrating even with Global Protect Agent, right, there is no additional software upgrades for you, right? It is natively integrated. So this is an easy setup. And additionally, now recently with our launch of ADEM supporting for NGFW, we have now covered those scenarios of mobile user connected to a Prisma Access location as a gateway or an NGFW gateway, right? So you can also connect now to an on-prem gateway and continue to get that same level of visibility on your entire service delivery chain. Additionally, the second aspect which I spoke about, or the second deployment, right, from your branch offices, not only do we get visibility into the ION devices onward, which we previously also had on ADEM, but adding to that now on the NGFW also, if you have an NGFW SD-WAN device on your branch site, you can actually get path by path visibility into actually the health and performance of each path for those various applications that you're monitoring. Couple of other things are synthetic tests are something that you can set up for monitoring, whereas when you look at it for the browser-based applications, we just look at your browser and what pages you're accessing, what is the performance of the page on your browser. There is no additional setup required there as well. That is something that we're able to pick up from your browser, right? And this is due to the ADEM extension that we have on the browser, right? So then again, there's an easy setup process. If you want to push ADEM extension to a Chromium based browser, you can do so as well. There is an easy MDM way to do that. And additionally, if it's Prisma Access browser, now that's even easier, right? Because it's a Prisma Access browser where we can have ADEM extension natively integrated there as well. So no matter where you are as a user, whether you're at home, whether you're on the go, whatever you're connected to, NGFW, PA location, or if you're, from the brand side, you're connected to the internal gateway, we are able to provide you continual telemetry and monitoring of your applications and your services and the internet so that you can have a seamless user experience. Okay. Now, coming to the next part, I do want to highlight that in order to maintain full visibility to keep employees productive from anywhere, we require a couple of things to happen, right? So I did talk about, of course, we need visibility into endpoint health. There could be several things happening on your endpoint. For example, if IT team has pushed a rollout, now that is spiking up your CPU, right? Maybe for a particular OS type and version. Now, that is an endpoint issue that's going to cause degradations when you're accessing resources, right? That's one example of an endpoint issue. Or Wi-Fi issues, right? Wi-Fi congestion, Wi-Fi quality, or when we talk about your network level, LAN, internet, or even the tunnel, right? You could be having high latency all of a sudden. You could be having packet loss issues or jitter, right? So these are all issues that may happen on your endpoint as well as your network. So ADEM is able to provide you visibility into what are the top processes on your CPU that are consuming the CPU, so that you can actually understand the CPU intensive processes that are running on your device, right? Maybe temporarily you want to shut off some devices so that shut off some applications that are running and eating up CPU so that you can continue to use the applications that you were trying to use. Additionally, if we are able to provide you, internet congestion or LAN issues, tunnel issues, right? Those are all things that you can leverage. You can look at the charts and graphs where we provide these statistics to you, and you can understand really where the issue is occurring. And then I also spoke about application performance, right? Now, when we talk about application performance, we talk about, your SaaS apps, custom apps, web-based, private apps, right? We are able to provide visibility into all of these type of applications. And like I previously also described, there is a distinction between monitoring the application server, but also understanding what's happening behind, right? With the microservice architecture, how are the different services deployed, located, and how are they performing? So in order to do that, we of course run our layer 7 synthetic tests, curl based tests to actually get the health and performance of the web-based applications, to get the HTTP latency, DNS lookup time, SSL handshake time, and so on. But additionally, to see what is really happening behind the server, how is the microservice architecture, and what is the experience of each page, each subdomain. To get to that granular level, we have come up with real user monitoring, which is able to actually indicate how is the page loading on your browser. Okay, so for applications that you are leveraging via the browser, we're able to indicate to you what is the speed of that. So the page load time, right? What is the interactivity of it? If I'm on Salesforce/login and I click on the button login, right? How much time does it take for the application to respond back? That indicates what is the interactivity of it. And what is the visual stability when you're on a dashboard page, right? You don't want any widget to be out of place, moving up or down. So, but this is more critical when you're leveraging something like a Zoom or something like a more dynamic application, right? So these are all the metrics that we collect from your browser so that we can show you what is the experience for each user when they're accessing each of the different domains and subdomains. And that does not require any additional setting up of application tests, right? For the synthetics, which is proactive in nature, and in certain cases, we do 24/7 monitoring of your applications, right? So we today run the synthetic tests not only from a user's device or from the branch device, but we also run 24/7. We do synthetic monitoring from the Prisma access locations. So we have our probe spun up on the Prisma access locations. So from those locations to the applications that you have anyway set up for monitoring, whatever business critical applications you have, we do 24/7 monitoring. Additionally, from the Prisma access locations to the applications, the same minimum rule of less, we don't actually mandate any, setup of less than 10 or less than 20 or 30 application domains to be tested. I have seen deployments where customers have set up 60, 70, 80 application domains for monitoring from the Prisma access locations as well. So this is where when you're in an environment or an enterprise where you're heavily relying on SaaS apps, which is pretty much most of the organizations today, you want to do continuous monitoring of these applications. So not only do we monitor that, but we're also able to raise incidents of any regional or global application issues or application outages that we detect. So if we do see that there is a specific application outage, we notify you, right? If this is regional or global, so that you can get a sense of uh, how many users are impacted and what region are we talking about, what is the application domain. Okay, so these are the different aspects of visibility that I spoke about. To summarize, it was about your endpoint health, which is your device. You can look at Wi-Fi on your network path. We also talk about LAN, internet, tunnel, and application performance, which we look at, of course, health and performance and L7 metrics, but also beyond that to understand stability of your page, interactivity of your page, and page load time. So this is summarizing the entire scale of visibility provided by ADEM. Now let me also go down and share other details as well. So here what we see is, and I covered parts of this, that the availability of ADEM is now with your entire NetSec platform, right? So if you have a user on the go or you have a user sitting in the branch, okay, we are able to monitor this specific user. Now, in the case of managed devices where you already have the global to actually push the ADEM extension, that is a quick setup done on the IT side. Um, I'm just going to pause here because I see a notification that my internet is unstable. I just want to make sure that you can still hear me.
You dropped a couple of times, but then you come back.
Oh, okay. Was it like past few seconds or?
It was probably about 5, 6 minutes ago, maybe a little longer than that. But yeah, you drop, but then you come back.
Okay, okay, cool.
Can hear
I
you
hope,
now.
yeah, I hope nothing much was missed. But I'm going to continue from here and I'll keep my Slack also open. And Basi, just let me know if, you're not able to hear me. Cool.
Okay, I'll start you.
Thank you. All right. So when we talk about the deployment, right? So I was saying that in the case of managed devices, we look at scenarios where ADEM is able to provide telemetry and insights and real user monitoring, even for scenarios where you have, if you're using Chrome browser or you're using Edge browser as your primary browser or Prisma Access browser, we can provide you the real user monitoring, which is what I was talking about. Each page, what is the experience of a user on each and every page? So Salesforce login page, dashboards page, and so on, right? So that is where we can provide you insights. Now, in the case of an unmanaged device, which does not have the agent on it, in that scenario, we provide real user monitoring with Prisma Access browser case, right? Because in the case where Prisma Access browser is on your device, but it's still an unmanaged device, we're able to have a process to still push the ADEM extension on your Prisma Access browser. So that allows us to continue to get this real user monitoring, okay? And then I spoke already about the branch scenario, and your traffic can be going via Prisma Access or the firewall, and we're able to monitor that. Okay. Now I do want to, we're half an hour in, I do want to take time to actually show you the look and feel of the product so you can get a sense of how can IT teams leverage all this visibility into their day-to-day troubleshooting workflows, right? So let's start, right? First, I want to talk about application transaction analytics with segment-wise insights. Now, a couple of interesting things here, right? So when you look at it, primarily most of a worker's day is spent on the browser, right? We're predominantly heavily reliant on the browser for our accessing resources, applications, and our day-to-day activities. Now, what I want to show you here is that if a user has a degradation on a specific page that they access within the application, right? The example I gave you earlier to say ServiceNow in this case, right? The login is all good and you go to snow.domain.com, it's still working fine. But now if you go to dashboards page or create page, you're having a degradation, right? And you see that when you look at the network segments or the endpoint, what's happening on the user side is they are facing a Wi-Fi issue, right? So if you are having a Wi-Fi issue, and at the same time, we do see that some of your page experiences are good, but some of your page experiences are bad. That can happen, right? But why would that happen? It's essentially because for more dynamic more dynamic pages such as ServiceNow dashboards page, right? You may have more difficulty. Maybe it's slower than it typically is when you are facing Wi-Fi quality, signal quality issues, or generally Wi-Fi issues, right? So that is one scenario where ADEM can correlate your now endpoint, network, and application and tell you that likely, if you look at it, we are monitoring every web transaction and we can indicate if a specific transaction done by the user is having a degraded experience due to which segment, right? So this is likely due to a Wi-Fi issue, not really to do with the application side issue, even though it may surface as an app issue, right? So this is how you can actually quickly troubleshoot, correlate, and tell what is the root cause. I'll show you that as well. Now, the other thing I do want to call out with the browser-based RAM is if you see the user has a particular workflow, right? So I said they went to ServiceNow, they logged in, and they clicked on dashboard. And now the user clicks on the create service request, and now the page fails. So this is essentially saying that if you're having a degradation again on a specific page, that should be indicated to you clearly. So let me show you this entire precise root cause, right? On one hand, you have synthetics, which I have spoken about in some detail, but of course, if there are any questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A as well. So on one hand, you have your synthetic monitoring, where we are continually running our ping test, our curl test, our trace route test to give the hop by hop visibility into all the hops from the endpoint to the applications. On the other hand, you have your browser-based real user monitoring, which is if you have real transactions where users are using applications on the browser, we can actually give insights into each and every page. So in this case, when you look at it holistically, with the root cause analysis, right? With the synthetics and RUM, what admins end up seeing is that, hey, page 3 of ServiceNow is performing poorly because of poor Wi-Fi connection at home. So we want to continue to leverage the ADEM telemetry, synthetics, and browser-based RUM, because put together, this is what allows us to do effective correlation and then finally tell you the root cause and then the remediation. Okay, so I want to also highlight because I want to make sure the audience here understands that when I use these terminologies, what I'm talking about, right? We typically measure real user monitoring. We have some industry standards in how we are able to leverage certain metrics and measure that. So the first one is, in simplified ways, loading, right? How fast or slow is your page loading? That is our page load time. And you see the interactivity, okay, of the application. That is a second aspect, is interactivity. And finally is a visual stability, to understand, right, how stable is really the UI. Now we have some detailed terms you might be seeing on this slide, such as first contentful paint or largest contentful paint. These are industry parameters that we factor in to ensure proper monitoring of these pages and also reporting a score. Okay, so when you say a largest contentful paint, just to give you an example, if you go to a news and media website like CNN.com or whichever site, you may see a large image appear on the front and you may see some text around it. Now, in that scenario, the largest contentful paint would actually be that image, right? That is the largest widget. So largest contentful paint essentially tells us how much time does it take from for the page to load to get to that largest widget to have fully been rendered on the user's browser or screen. Okay, so the reason I'm sharing this is just so the audience here understands what are the metrics we use to actually calculate these. These are typical industry metrics of largest contentful paint, interaction to next paint. If you look at this Google's Core Web Vitals, that's what they are called. They are called Google's Core Web Vitals, where Google has done intensive research on several thousands and tens of thousands of applications to come up with a construct of how do we effectively monitor and do real user monitoring for these sites, and what is really deemed as a good experience, acceptable or fair, and then poor. Okay, so let me now walk you through what that might look like for you when you're actually going to troubleshoot. Okay, so I'm going to start. So you can still see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Perfect. Okay. So now what I want to walk you through is really how can you leverage now the visibility and the information I gave to do the troubleshooting. Okay. So the first aspect here is what you're looking at is SASE health. Now, what you see here is for your entire organization's deployment. What is the health and experience of all the users in my organization? You can see, right? Totally, this organization has over 14,000 Global Protect users. Additionally, you also see how many of these users have a good experience and how many have a poor experience. So here you see that 776 users have a poor experience. Now, the first question that comes to mind for typically any IT admin is, why do these 776 users have a poor experience? What is causing the poor experience? Okay, so if you click on this degraded user experience, now you're able to filter the map to those users alone who had a degraded experience, which is that 776 users that had a degraded experience. Now you see in this entire left navigation, it actually tells you for each and every segment, it's giving you a breakdown. So it's saying 256 users in your organization have a device level issue. 81 users in your organization have a Wi-Fi level issue, and so on, right? So now you get that for the entire service delivery chain, it's giving you each of the root causes. Now, if I filter it out, right, for Wi-Fi, just to see and filter who are the users in my organization who are having a Wi-Fi level issue, right? And if you look at it, these are all clusters of users who are having a Wi-Fi issue. Now, if I hover on this one user, it looks like a user called Benjamin, who is located in Japan, right? Who is also facing some sort of a Wi-Fi issue. So now what you want to see here is, if you look at the impact by segment, it actually indicates to you that Benjamin seems to have had issues on Wi-Fi segment, but also issues on application and LAN, which is interesting, right? So you're seeing here that what is a segment impact for Benjamin. Now, furthermore, if I look at the browsing experience, you can see that Benjamin has accessed 4 domains, and the time spent on the Prisma Access browser is 10 hours and 45 minutes. Okay, and now when I earlier spoke about the core web vitals, you see them being surfaced here. So what is really the largest contentful paint time, and what is the interaction to next paint, right? And what are the open browser instances? So this really helps you better understand what is the browsing experience. Now, if I click on view more details for this specific user, it's going to go to their user level dashboard, right? Which is what, when a user calls into IT and says, I'm having an issue, IT would typically come to this specific dashboard to solve for these single user issues, right? So if you come here, you can actually see that this user has had Wi-Fi issues. You also see them having some level of LAN issues, and definitely you see some level of the applications being impacted due to Wi-Fi issues, right? So if you look at it, if you go up, this, when you see the R and S here, you see the symbols of R and S, that's actually telling you RAM and synthetics, right? That's means to say that the score of 32 is being derived from two sources, which is the browser, which is the real user monitoring, but also the synthetics at the same time, right? So that's what it is indicating. Now, if you look at the page experience, this helps you understand on on the entire time that you have selected on the top, right? You can go on to select past 15 minutes. You can go on to select past 3 hours, all the way up to past 30 days. You can also select a custom time filter on the top. So just giving you a sense of that, but this is what tells you the degradation for each and every page. So if I hover on this, you can see in this case, this user has had a poor experience all across for office.com. Okay, and you can see that if you hover on any of these, it actually tells you what were the degradations for each and every page. And when you click on that, you can see the specific pages that this user visited. And here, if you look at these LCP, TTFB, and INP, this is telling you that the LCP is poor. So when I explained the largest contentful paint, or the time that it takes for that largest widget to properly fully render on the screen, that is what is LCP, and that is poor. So when you look at the root cause, you see that this user's office.com performance is being impacted due to Wi-Fi signal quality, and then you have a suggested remediation for each of these issues. So in this case, it's like, okay, your signal quality is poor, you will likely see improvements if you move closer to router, and if you still experience issues, you need to check if your Wi-Fi router is older. You may want to switch to another Wi-Fi network if you have the option to just connect to your mobile hotspot and so on temporarily, right? But you do know that this is really not an issue that is to do with office.com. It's an issue surfaced due to these Wi-Fi issues, right? So really the root cause is the Wi-Fi. So that is the first scenario. Now I also want to show you a couple of other things and other ways in which you are able to surface and look at the experience for each of these different applications. So here, if you go, you can select a particular domain onto this page. Here is where you see all of the application domains. You can select a particular domain. So in my case, I've selected Palo Alto Networks.lightning.force.com, right? So Salesforce. So what we see here is the experience of this Salesforce, right? So what's important to see here is because this is, being used by users in this deployment, which is why we see the browser activity. So if you look at it, there were 35 minutes of fair experience on the browser. So for across all users in your organization, we do see there are several users who are using, Salesforce. And what you do see is 35 hours of fair experience. You also see the degradation of pages. 2 pages were good and 1 page was fair. And then you see the average of the core web vitals called out here as well. Okay. Now, if you scroll down, you can see here that for the for the LCP and the TTFB in all these scenarios, when you look at the entire chart here, the sunburst, you're able to see that the issues are mostly to do with application. If you see, the device issues are very few. Mostly this issue is to do with application. So what that indicates to us is the users who have a degradation with this application, the root cause in itself is the application, right? So there are some issues seeing, which is why the largest contentful paint, that LCP, is so high, or so many users are facing that degradation due to that. And then we also see users being impacted by TTFP, which is yet again our time to first byte, right? So because we see this, we indicate that these issues are likely happening on, for not to do with user level issues or network level issues, but actually to do with application issues. And we can also further look into that, right? So I've clicked on a particular user who is degraded, Anushka Rastogi. So you can see here that for this specific user who is degraded, if we go to that domain, we want to understand what is the experience. So when you look at the root cause here, it clearly indicates to you that this is a application level impact. And you can see here that the root cause here is high LCP and high TTFP. Okay. So these are application level metrics, which is why we know that the degradation is on the application side. Additionally, what you can also look at is the page experience that this user has. So we can actually assess if is this user even using this application on the browser, right? And we do see, yeah, this user has been leveraging this application on the browser as well. So what we do end up seeing again is the page insights. So when you look at it, you see again the LCP being high. Okay, so when I click on these pages, I'm able to indicate that the LCP is high and the TTFB is also high. So these are our L7 metrics as well as LCP being, the largest contentful paint. So root cause analysis says that this user's, Palo Alto Networks.lightning.force.com performance is being impacted due to high LCP and high TTFB. So this is an application issue, right? So now in this scenario, the root cause is truly the application itself. Okay. Now, additional things I also want to call out is in a case where, we're still on that same user, but you also want to see a scenario where you're able to look at this user's experience for, let's say, servicenow.com, right? What I do see for this user's experience in servicenow.com is really bad. So it actually shows me a bunch of different metrics that I want to also indicate and highlight here. So it looks like this user has had several degradations that we see on not only the Salesforce application, but also the ServiceNow application, right? Where the application has been unreachable for a certain time period. So if you look at it, when you look at the score that we see for ServiceNow application, the score actually shows as 0. So here, what we see in the root cause, as expected, is that the application is unavailable. So when we do see our tests responding back with a certain response code from the server side, we are able to assess that is it really a client side issue or is it a app server side issue. In this case, because our tests have responded back with a certain HTTP response code, we have declared that this is an application being unreachable. So this is actually happening on the server side. It's not a degradation. It's a complete reachability issue. So the application is unreachable in this case. And sorry, the application is unavailable. I was saying the term unreachable, which actually means something else. Sorry, I take that back. This application is unavailable. So definitely the issue is on the app server, right? It could be several issues, bad gateway, the server didn't respond for whatever reason, right? So this is the app being unavailable, okay? Now, coming back to looking at the other aspects where I want to continue is we did have a good look at what this real user monitoring workflows look like. I also want to now talk to you about the next aspect, which is actually the meeting quality analytics with UCaaS integrations. So I do want to highlight here that we have had UCaaS integrations done with Zoom as well as Teams, which is very exciting. And we're able to indicate it's a cloud to cloud integration. So we pull in the call quality data from Zoom or Teams. We look at the call quality data. We correlate it with our own metrics that we collect, right? For Zoom and Teams, it could be our endpoint network app metrics. And once we do the correlations and we identify the root cause, that is when we indicate to the admin that we are aware of the root cause and we actually surface that as well. Okay, so now if I go back to the Strata Cloud Manager to walk you through what that would look like, and I put here the application domain. So let me put Teams. Okay, so here you see all of the different domains that we are monitoring, right? And these could be domains that you have intentionally set up for monitoring. I'm just going to turn off my video just in case the audio is better. Okay. So yeah, let's go to teams.office.com. And the domains page actually not only indicates the domains that you are monitoring intentionally or have set up for monitoring for the synthetic tests, but also the domains that we were able to monitor from the browser itself, right? Or real user monitoring. So when you look at this teams.office.com, and when you come down here, you see the total time elapsed, which tells you, the total time, total minutes, 141,000 plus minutes of meetings, out of which 5% of meetings had issues. When you look at it, how many meetings had issues and what are the total number of users? So you see around 5% users also had issues. Now, when you scroll down, it actually tells you what are the key bottlenecks, right? What are the real issues within your organization that are causing the degradations? So one is we see that during the call, if a user has tried to turn
Okay,
on.
sorry to interrupt you. We just have 5 minutes left for the webinar to end, and we also need time for questions. So if you can wrap it up as soon as you can.
Yeah, Sana, just give me like about 3 minutes. I know it's a bit tight, but just want to show you this really quick. Yeah. All right, so then you look at the device, when a user enables or disables Global Protect, it could be internet issues or Wi-Fi specific issues as well, right? And when you go to a specific user experience, you're again able to see for that specific user, what is the experience for MS Teams. So you actually can see that for that specific user, what is their own experience for MS Teams for that application, but also for each and every meeting and call quality, right? So not just for the server, but also so that you can understand if a specific meeting had audio, video, or screen share issues. So this is how you can see that this user had a meeting here, and we see that the network latency was high, and hence you see that they had a degradation. Now, coming back on track, I also want to take time, and I'll be quick on this, but I do want to cover so that so the audience is aware that we also have a self-service component that I previously spoke about, where we directly tell and empower end users of any issues that they are facing on their end, which could be something like a Wi-Fi quality being poor. Additionally, I also want to cover the multi-domain analysis capability, which is essentially we allow IT admins to ask a query on a tool where we quickly do a multi-domain analysis to say, is it on the endpoint, network, application, or the security, right? So if you look at the multi-domain analysis today, if you go to SCM and you go to Access Analyzer and you click on Start a New Query, you can type a query saying, can Manani access Salesforce? Okay, and if you submit the query, you will receive a result or a response. And this result actually indicates to you that, hey, everything looks good on the endpoint, network, and application, but we do see an issue on the security policy side, right? So you see that there is a clear indication of an issue on a policy side. Additionally, we also indicate to you if there are any threats that are hindering the user's access, right? You have your CDSS working well. Maybe the policy is fine and allowing a user, but there are real-time threats blocking the user, right? That is the visibility that you get as well. Or maybe everything looks good on the policy side and the threats, but there is still IDP that is blocking the user, right? So that is how we here at ADEM at Palo Alto are able to, again, because we're natively integrated, we can give you visibility into policy blocks, real-time threats, or if there was a block on Okta or Azure, right? And finally, I'll take 1 minute on this, but I do want to share that proactive incident notification for app and infrastructure issues. I did previously mention how we raise notifications for regional or global application outages, but I do want to cover another scenario where you may have a specific issue and you want to troubleshoot for that, right? So we tend to raise incidents for these widespread issues, so you don't need to always be checking on the dashboard because you can see these incidents surfaced via email, webhooks, or ServiceNow. Here in this case, right, you're seeing that this is a WAN issue. Now here what we are indicating is there is a primary WAN tunnel where the RTT is higher than twice the baseline in the last 15 minutes. So what we do on our end is we use machine learning to do baselining of your network. And if the RTT is now higher than twice the baseline, we want to raise this notification to you so that you can actually see on the incident the chart and graph that shows what is the bandwidth, what is the round trip time, and you can actually get a sense of this, the BGP data as well, assess that so that you can understand that where the issue is, right? So this incident is essentially telling you that something is wrong today. This is anomaly detection, and we can raise an email about it. You can get this through webhooks or ServiceNow native integration as well. With that, I will wrap up this presentation. I have covered all aspects of what we're doing here on the ADEM side.